So if you've been coming for, I know we got a couple new people, so we're studying through the Gospel of Matthew. Every week we just pick up where we left off. If you've been here for a while, you're going to see a large chunk of verses, and you probably already know we ain't getting through all those verses. But I'm chunking them. This way because that's, I think, an appropriate grouping for what Jesus is actually saying in those verses. So for the last month, probably 5 or so weeks at least, we've been in Matthew chapter 24. And we were looking at verses 1 through 44 because that was a big chunk of scripture where Jesus is talking about, he's replying to the disciples' questions, but he's talking about the destruction of the temple and the signs of his coming and the end of the age. Those were the phrases used at the beginning of the chapter. So we spent some time talking about how there's different views about those verses and how we should interpret them. We spent some weeks talking about that. Now we get to the end of where Jesus has prophesied. He's done prophesying in this section. And then we read last week that at the end of those prophecies, he gave some actual instructions for how we should react to those prophecies, and that's where we landed last week. The basic idea, remember, concerning these end times events and the timing of his coming and looking for the signs of his second coming and all that, the basic instructions are, be ready. Y'all remember that? That's where we landed last week. It was be ready because you don't know when it is. That was I'm making it very basic, but that was the basic idea. Everybody good there? Now, the reason I have these verses chunked the way that I have them is at the end of chapter 24, starting at verse 45, at the end of chapter 24, instead of prophesying or giving the instructions that he gave, he now goes into, we might still look at it as still instruction in a way, but he gives a bunch of parables. A bunch of parables at the end of 24 and into chapter 25. It's all parables about being ready. Everybody good with that? So that's why I have this grouped. Now, last week at the end, I had said one of the things I wanted to do and ran out of time was I kind of wanted to go read Daniel chapter 7 and chapter 8 to show everybody that there's an example in Scripture of some end times things and things that sound very similar to a lot that's in the book of Revelation. But in the book of Daniel, we actually get to hear the interpretation. In Revelation, we don't really get told what's the interpretation. But in Daniel, we do. So I said, we're out of time. We're not going to do it. Go do it for homework. Did a lot of people not do that for homework? So I was debating. Some people did. Don't show off. Don't show off. Listen to some. I was kind of debating. Should we just not go into that or do it? I think it's worth doing it. I just want to show. I know that chapter 24. A lot of what we discussed in chapter 24 also ties to a lot of what's in the book of Revelation. And I want to go ahead and read Daniel chapters 7 and 8 because I'm not trying to I don't even have like a firm view about how all these end times things work. But I do want to help people, how do I say it? I want to help people not be too firm in a way that even biblically we probably shouldn't be. You know what I mean? So what I mean by that is when it comes to the book of Revelation, I'm sorry if I'm saying a whole lot, but I want to explain why I want to go read these chapters. When it comes to the book of Revelation, there's a whole lot of disagreements. I'm going to let you know we're not trying to work out Revelation today. Okay, like that's just not going to happen. That's not even the goal of today's study. We're in the Gospel of Matthew. But part of the reason there's so many disagreements concerning Revelation is the same reason we said there's a lot of disagreements in Matthew 24. It has to do with, okay, how much of this has already happened and how much is still to come? That's one issue. A second issue is how much of this is literal, how much is figurative or symbolic? Y'all get the idea? And then there's a mixture of those two issues all happening throughout the entire book of Revelation. So there's a lot of disagreements. I wanted to show everybody there's some language in Matthew chapter 24, and that's why we're going to go read Daniel chapter 7. There's some language in Matthew chapter 24 that some people will take very literally. It talked about, I don't know if y'all remember, it talked about stars falling from the sky. And I just want to show you there's another place in Scripture that says something very similar. And when you read it in chapter 24, you're like, oh, that's got to be like a comet hitting the earth or something like that. It could be, but But don't think it's silly if somebody else says, I think that's figurative language for something else. And you're like, well, I just believe what the Bible says. Well, in Daniel chapter 7, literally some of those same phrases are used and interpreted, and it does not literally mean a comet's hitting the earth. Y'all with me? So I think it's worth at least seeing that so that you understand, even in the scriptures, sometimes figurative language is used and it represents something else. And not even figurative language, figurative visions, actually, because we're about to read about some visions. And it represents something else, and that doesn't mean people don't believe the Bible. That's really the main reason I want to show everybody. Okay, so let's go read Daniel chapter 7. I just finished Daniel in just my personal Bible reading, so it's kind of fresh on my mind. And so we're going to read from Daniel chapter 7. By the way, I just did a devotion yesterday with a group of people from the book of Daniel, kind of a different point completely. But I was pointing out to them, Daniel is one of the rare people in Scripture that, as far as I know, were never pointed out any specific falls or sins that he had. Obviously, he wasn't sinless. We've all fallen short. But we're not told of any, as far as I know, where like, Daniel really screwed up. Like we do hear about with Moses and David and Abraham and, even some of the great heroes of the faith. We know they also messed up big time. With Daniel, as far as I can tell, we don't hear of any of that. So Daniel is a very faithful person. He serves under multiple kings of Babylon. This is during the time of exile where he's taken as a young man into captivity under King Nebuchadnezzar. Some of y'all remember him. After he serves under Nebuchadnezzar faithfully, then who's next? Belshazzar comes next. After Belshazzar, it's Darius. I think after Darius, it's Cyrus, and he serves through all those kings. And he's very faithful. And under all of theirs, this is quick side note, side sermon, not the point, but really cool. He never compromises concerning his devotion to the Lord. And at the same time, because I feel like sometimes we think it's impossible, he never compromises with the Lord. And at the same time, he still serves under those kings very, very wholeheartedly. And he's very good to those kings, even though they're crooked and worship other gods and do all kinds of whack stuff. He's faithful to them, and he stays faithful to God the whole time. And under all of those kings, he finds great favor with them, and they promote him always. That's pretty interesting. And then you have the famous Daniel in the lion's den thing in Daniel chapter 6. But then in Daniel chapter 7, here's where we're going to read. It says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions in his mind as he lay on his bed. Then he wrote the dream down and told the following summary of it. Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and four great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another. Does this sound like a scary dream already? Weird, right? What is this about? Okay, so he sees water stirring and these beasts coming out of the water. The first was like a lion, but had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground and sat up on 2 feet like a man. A human mind was also given to it. So you got this weird beast, but human mind. And behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear. And it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. And they said this to it, arise, devour much meat. What does that mean, right? After this, I kept looking, and behold, another one, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. And the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. That means power. After this, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and extremely strong. And it had large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the previous horns were plucked out before it. And behold, this horn possessed eyes like human eyes, and a mouth uttering great boasts. Okay, so pause. Summary is he sees these 4 beasts, right? The last one, we hear more details about. The last one is dreadful and terrible. As far as I heard, let's see. It doesn't say... It had large iron teeth. Did it say what kind of animal it looked like? I don't think it said on the fourth one. It said the other ones resembled certain animals, right? The first one was like a lion with wings of an eagle. The second one was a bear. The third one was a leopard, but it had 4 wings of a bird. The fourth one, it just says it's dreadful and terrible, extremely strong, had large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed. It trampled down everything else with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it. And then it had 10 horns. Now, and then it gets even weirder. If that's not weird enough, it has 10 horns. But then from those horns, another smaller one comes up, and 3 of the other ones go away. Right? So 3 go away, and this smaller one comes up. And then on that horn, the horn has eyes, human eyes, and it has a mouth, and it's talking trash. Well, that's not how Daniel said it, but uttering great boasts. Okay? It's proud, arrogant words, you know? Okay, verse 9. I kept looking until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was ablaze with flames. Its wheels were a burning fire. A river of fire was flowing and coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands were serving him, and myriads upon myriads were standing before him. The court convened, and the books were opened. I apologize, we're not going to be able to dig into what all of this means, okay? But I think it's clear. The Ancient of Days refers to the Lord, okay? And I think when it talks about the books being open, I think this is like judgment time, okay? Then I kept looking because the sound of the boastful words which the horn was speaking. Did everybody hear that? So he's referring back to that little horn that had the mouth and was talking trash, right? I kept looking until the beast was killed and its body was destroyed and given to the burning fire. As for the rest of the beasts, their dominion was taken away, but an extension of life was granted to them for an appointed period of time. So that last beast gets destroyed, thrown in burning fire. The other ones, their power is taken away, but they're still kind of surviving, right? An extension of life was given for an appointed period of time, for a certain amount of time. Verse 13, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming. And he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him, and to him was given dominion, honor, and a kingdom, so that all the peoples, nations, and populations of all languages, or yours might say peoples, nations, and tongues, might serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which will not pass away, and his kingdom is one which will not be destroyed. This, pretty much everybody agrees, this is talking about Jesus, okay? And Jesus, remember, referred to himself as the Son of Man. This is where he's getting that title from. We've talked about that before. But notice, he comes to the Ancient of Days, right? And dominion is given over to Jesus. Power is given over to Jesus so that everybody might serve him. And his dominion is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom, or we could say his kingdom, an everlasting kingdom, and it won't pass away. It can't be destroyed. That's cool stuff. That's just cool to stop and appreciate. Okay, now, verse 15. My Bible has a heading that says, the vision interpreted. And this is why I wanted to read it. Now, pause. I want to make sure we're not going to dig into all the details. We don't have time. But does everybody agree those visions are weird? Weird. And like, if you had that vision, do you think you'd pop out of that dream and be like, oh, I know exactly what this is about? Probably not, right? And in fact, it's very interesting. Daniel, remember, I'm going to quick backtrack a little bit. Daniel is used by God in very revelatory ways. Okay, if you don't remember some of his story, multiple times he has been able to interpret dreams that nobody else can interpret. God shows him what it means. Not only that, the first time in Daniel chapter 1, I think is where the first one happens. Yeah, I think it's in chapter 1, where the first one happens. King Nebuchadnezzar, he won't even tell what the dream was. He wants his wise men to know what his dream was and give the interpretation. And they're like, well, just tell us the dream and we'll interpret it. And he's like, no. I'm not even going to tell you what it was. So God reveals to Daniel what the dream was and what it means. So Daniel is a person who has, my point is, he has experience with God speaking to him in pretty unique ways. And even so, we're going to hear that Daniel didn't understand these visions. Okay? So watch what it says in verse 15. As for me, Daniel, my spirit was distressed within me, and the visions in my mind kept alarming me. I approached one of those who were standing by and began requesting of him the exact meaning of all this. Now, in the vision, he's standing next to somebody. Okay, so he's still, I think he's still in the vision, and somebody's next to him. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. Did everybody hear that? We don't always get the interpretations. Here we do. He told me the interpretations. These great beasts, which are 4 in number, are 4 kings who will arise from the earth. Did everybody hear that? So it sounds very strange, right? You hear the water swirl and these creatures come out of the ocean. Very weird. But we're told here that actually represents 4 kings that rise up in power. Okay? But the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and take possession of the kingdom for all ages to come. I believe that's us. Okay? The saints of the highest one. Yours might say the most high. Okay? So even though there's going to be these 4 kings that rise up, no. The ones who are devoted to the true king are going to take possession of the kingdom forever. Then I desired to know the exact meaning of the 4th beast. Remember we said that 4th beast was even weirder? Which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its claws of bronze, and which devoured, crushed, and trampled down the remainder with its feet. And the meaning of the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, and before which 3 of the horns fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth uttering great boasts, and which was larger in appearance than its associates. So he wants to know, Daniel's actually saying, but I wanted to know the exact details. That weird beast with the horns, and what did that other one mean that came up and started talking trash, right? I kept looking, and that horn was waging war with the saints and prevailing against them. Did everybody hear that? That horn was waging war with the saints and prevailing against them until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one. And the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom. So there's a time in which this horn, whatever it means, is waging war against the saints of God and prevailing, winning. But doesn't win in the end, right? It said the Ancient of Days comes in judgment in favor of the saints and gives them the kingdom. Okay, this is what he said. The 4th beast will be a 4th kingdom on the earth, which will be different from all the other kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth and trample it down and crush it. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings will arise, and another will arise after them. And he will be different from the previous ones and will humble 3 kings. And he will speak against the Most High and wear down the saints of the highest one. And he will intend to make alterations in times and in law, and they will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. But the court will convene for judgment, and his dominion will be taken away, annihilated, and destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, the dominion, and the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all the empires will serve and obey him. This sounds very much, to me, like end times things. Okay. At this point, the revelation ended. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts were greatly alarming to me, and my face became pale, but I kept the matter to myself. So, if you were Daniel, and if you heard what was just said, would it be like, oh, now I get it? Personally, I'd still be like, okay, well, you told me some stuff, but I still don't get the stuff you told me. You know what I mean? You gave me more information, I still don't understand. That would be me. Now, let's keep reading into chapter 8, because there's another one in... Anyway. In the 3rd year of the reign of Belshazzar, the king, a vision appeared to me. So the other vision was in the 1st year, so this is 2 years later. Right? So 2 years later, we're hearing about another vision. It appeared to me, Daniel, subsequent to the one which appeared to me previously. I looked in the vision, and while I was looking, I was in the citadel of Susa, which is in the province of Elam, And I looked in the vision, and I myself was beside the Ulai canal. Then I raised my eyes and looked, and behold, a ram which had 2 horns was standing in front of the canal. Now the 2 horns were long, but one was longer than the other, with the longer one coming up last. I saw the ram butting westward, northward, and southward, and no other beasts could stand against him, nor was there anyone to rescue from his power. But he did as he pleased, and he made himself great. Okay, so this vision, we see a ram. It's got 2 lopsided horns, one's bigger than the other, and it butts in every direction, and nobody can, from any direction, nobody can stand against this ram. Good point. It says westward, northward, and southward. Never went east, okay? But nobody's able to rescue from his power. Now, while I was observing, behold, a male goat was coming from the west over the surface of the entire earth without touching the ground. So this is kind of interesting. This is in a vision, right? A dream or whatever. And I don't know how this looks. Like this goat's just like floating, above the ground. I don't know. But it says without touching the ground. And the goat had a prominent horn between its eyes. So this goat has 1 horn right in the middle. He got a unicorn goat. He came up to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing in front of the canal, and rushed at him with his mighty wrath. And I saw him come up beside the ram, and he was enraged at him, and he struck the ram and smashed his 2 horns, and the ram had no strength to withstand him. So he hurled him to the ground and trampled on him, and there was no one to rescue the ram from his power. Then the male goat made himself exceedingly great, but once he became powerful, the large horn was broken. And in its place, 4 prominent horns came up toward the 4 winds of heaven. So this ram with the 1 horn wins. After it wins the fight with the goat, its horn breaks off, right? And 4 other ones come up. And out of one of them came a rather small horn. So now out of one of those 4 horns, another horn's coming, which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the beautiful land, my translation says. What does y'all say there at the end of verse 9? Glorious land? Okay. It grew up to the heavenly lights, and some of the lights, that is, some of the stars, it threw down to the earth, and it trampled them. Did everybody hear that? This is one of the phrases that I just wanted to point out similar, right? It threw stars down to the earth in this vision. The ram. We're talking about the ram still. It even exalted itself to be equal with the commander of the army, and it removed the regular sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was overthrown. Did everybody hear that? And because of an offense, the army will be given to the horn along with the regular sacrifice, and it will hurl truth to the ground and do as it pleases and be successful. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to that particular one who was speaking, How long will the vision about the regular sacrifice apply? While the offense causes horror, so as to allow both the sanctuary and the army to be trampled. And he said to me, For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary will be properly restored. So, again, we don't have time to dig into all of it, but notice there's speak of ending sacrifices, right? Ending sacrifices. This horn of the ram exalting itself, throwing stars to the ground, and exalting itself equal to the what was it? Commander of the army. How long will this last? 2,300 evenings and mornings. Then the sanctuary will be restored. I don't have time to answer. I don't even have good, solid views on this. But here's what I wanted to show you. When I, Daniel, had seen the vision, I sought to understand it. And behold, standing before me was one who looked like a man. And I heard the voice of a man between the banks of Ulai, and he called out and said, Gabriel, explain the vision to this man. So he came near to where I was standing, and when he came, I was frightened and fell on my face. And he said to me, Son of man, understand the vision that pertains to the time of the end. That's a big deal. Now, while he was talking with me, I was dazed and my face to the ground. But he touched me and made me stand at my place. And he said, "Behold, I'm going to inform you of what will occur at the final period of the indignation, because it pertains to the appointed time of the end." Verse 20. "The ram which you saw with the two horns represents the kings of Media and Persia." Everybody good there? "The shaggy goat represents the kingdom of Greece, and the large horn that is between his eyes is the first king. The broken horn and the four horns that come up in its place represent four kingdoms which will arise from his nation, although not with his power." So remember that first horn, it says it represents the first king, talking about Greece, but that horn's in the vision, got broken off and four other horns came. It says four other kingdoms will arise in place of that nation. Does that make sense? "And in the latter period of their dominion, when the wrongdoers have run their course, a king will arise, insolent and skilled in intrigue, and his power will be mighty, but not by his own power. And he will destroy to an extraordinary degree and be successful and do as he pleases. He will destroy mighty men and the holy people, and through his shrewdness he will make deceit a success by his influence. He will make himself great in his own mind, and he will destroy many while they are at ease. He will even oppose the prince of princes, but he will be broken without human agency. And the vision of the evenings and mornings, which has been told, is true. But as for you, keep the vision secret, because it pertains to many days." Mine says, so literally it says, "because to many days." That's all, those are the only words. "Because to many days." My translation says, "because it pertains to many days in the future." That's what the... "Then I, Daniel, was exhausted and sick for days. Then I got up and carried on the king's business, but I was astounded at the vision, and there was no one to explain it." Now, it sounds like Daniel still doesn't fully understand, even after being told some of what it means, right? Okay, maybe I'm opening a can of worms. I'm not trying to teach us tonight what all of Daniel chapter 7 and 8 means in detail, and we deeply understand it. Maybe at some point we can come back and do that. The reason I wanted to share it is, does everybody see that sometimes God uses imagery that doesn't literally mean a beast that's a bear, and a beast that looks like a leopard, and a beast, this leopard with four wings. It doesn't mean a leopard with four wings is actually coming into the earth. It represented a king, a kingdom. Here we read about ram, two horns, right? And that actually represented two kings. Then this other little goat comes, destroys it, right? That represents Greece, we found out. But the horn represents the king of Greece, and boom, that king's going to fall, and four other kings are going to rise up, right? And those are four horns. We read a phrase in there that talked about how that little horn drags down the stars from the sky. How was it worded? Let me see. Yeah, it grew up. It's still talking about that small horn, right? Four prominent horns come up, and out of one of them came a rather small horn, which grew exceedingly great. I'm reading in verse 9. Toward the east and toward the beautiful land. It grew up to the heavenly lights, and some of the lights, that is some of the stars, it threw down to the earth and it trampled them. Now, let's pause. If this horn represents the king of Greece, do y'all think the king of Greece literally dragged stars out of the sky and threw them to the ground? It means something else, And it seems these prophecies in that section seem to mean about kingdoms going to war with each other and certain kings, coming out victorious over another kingdom. My point is, even when we read some of the stuff in Revelation, some similar imagery is used. And I'm sharing this because I grew up reading it very literal and thinking stuff's gonna get real weird, and because you're gonna see this, and it is gonna get bad, but the book of Revelation talks about a dragon and a beast and it probably, we just need to understand, even in the Bible, we're shown not everything that God reveals in a vision to somebody is literal. It can be figurative, symbolic language that means something else. Sadly, wouldn't it be great if all of Revelation was then interpreted for us? But it's a little tougher there. Really, I just want, like I said it a while ago, really I just want to show people that it can be symbolic, and even somebody like Daniel didn't understand when he saw these visions. So it probably was with John and the revelations that are written in Revelation. But also, just if you read them very literally and somebody else takes it more figuratively, don't be like, well, what's wrong with you, Because in the scriptures, some things are figurative. And especially in a book like Revelation, it's hard to know, again, how much is figurative, how much is literal, how much has already been fulfilled, how much is still to be fulfilled. That's where all the disagreements come. We don't have time to work it all out today, I apologize. What time is it? How much time did we take on that? Oh my gosh. Too much time. We're supposed to be studying Matthew. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if I should even ask, but are there questions? Because I probably can't answer. Go ahead, sister.
It says here, the lamb which God saw us having the horns of the king of Media and Persia.
Mhm.
When it says Persia, does that mean because Iran was Persia, but it was changed in 1930 or 40?
So, yeah. So modern day Persia is definitely that region of the earth. You know what? It'd be good to do some historical study. So remember how we talked about in Matthew 24 that sometimes there's dual fulfillments of things? Like sometimes there's a fulfillment of something happening, like historically, boom, it was fulfilled, but it can still be fulfilled again, like the Bible actually shows us that. When it comes to this, I don't know if this is something that has already been fulfilled and could still be fulfilled again. I would say for sure, though, there's things to be fulfilled here. Maybe something has already happened historically, but for sure there's something, and because there's phrases in here, did y'all catch it, where it says these things apply to the times of the end? So I think this is definitely end time stuff. I don't think this is just stuff like that was going to play out, in the next few hundred years after Daniel or something. Does that make sense? Now, maybe something did happen in those times, but I think it also applies to something that's still to come. I think there's certain things in here that, for me, I definitely think these are end times prophecies, not just something that was going to happen close to that time.
I think this verse really backs up what you just said, Daniel 12.
Yeah.
Verse,
You're talking about the very end of the book?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Go ahead. Yeah, read it. Go ahead.
I mean, I guess this is referring to a different set of visions, though. But,
It might be to all of them. I don't know.
but he said,
Yeah.
God said, the angel said, but you, Daniel, shut up.
Whoa.
And seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. I mean, like the internet, but anyway. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there stood two others, one on this riverbank and the other on that riverbank. And one said to the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river, how long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half, and when the power of the, sorry, I didn't do that much, but anyway, the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all these things shall be finished. Although I heard, I did not understand, and I said, my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end.
Yeah, my translation says, go your way, Daniel, for these words will be kept secret and sealed up until the end time.
Which to me makes it very clear that this is referring to something after the
Yeah, so you had a good question in there. Yeah, so I agree. Like I said, I think it's clear from Daniel 7 to all the way to 12 that a bunch of these visions are end times things. Maybe there was already some fulfillments, but still it's going to be fulfilled another way still to come for sure. But what was I going to say? Oh, but you asked the question when it says where was it? Verse 4. Mine says, "But as for you, Daniel, keep these words secret and seal up the book until the end of time. Many will roam about and knowledge will increase." Which words is it? Is it concerning all these visions? Because the idea seems to be like these things are not going to be understood until a certain time. And then it will be understood. But Charlotte asked, is he talking about just the vision like right before here? You know, the last vision? Or is it all those visions from Daniel chapter 7 all and on? I don't know. I have a feeling it's probably all of them. I don't know. That's just me. That we won't fully understand. But there will come a time where then, for whatever reason, and by whatever mechanism God chooses, somehow understanding comes, you know? Yeah, I don't understand this stuff.
But we don't need to worry about that. I'm going to continue where she was in Daniel 12.
What verse, brother?
I'm going to back up to 7, the latter part of 7, 7b.
Mm-hmm.
The power of the holy people has been completely shattered. All these things shall be finished, which is an interesting prophecy because that was the status of the church the first time Jesus came by. So what he's saying is deja vu. The status of the church the last time I come back, the next time I come back, is going to be powerless church, which is the abomination of desolation, which is Matthew 23, Matthew 24.
Daniel 7.
Daniel asked the exact same question the disciples asked in Matthew 24, verses 1 and 2. What's it going to look like, and when is it going to be? What are the end times going to look like? That's what his closest friends asked him, right after he rebuked the Pharisees for 3 chapters.
Yeah.
But he said all these things should be finished. So you've got the abomination of desolation that has destroyed the power of the holy people. And so this powerless church, which we currently live in, is prophetic. Now the good news is Jesus is going to fix it just like he tried to do 2,000 years ago. And so that's good news. And here's really good news. But verse 8, although I heard, I did not understand. Then I said, see, this is where we get into religious trouble. People make up answers and they don't have a spiritual understanding. They have religious understanding. They have what they teach at seminary, but they don't have spiritual understanding. They have denominational understanding. They have man-made religion understanding, but they don't have spiritual understanding. And even Daniel, he told him, just close this up. And Daniel asked him again. He said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed until the end time. Daniel was asking him, Lord, what does all this mean? And he didn't tell him the same thing he told his disciples 700 or 800 years later. He said, many shall be purified, made white, refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly, all the way to the end, buying and selling, marrying and giving in marriage. And none of the wicked shall understand. That is, he says in Thessalonians, he's coming as a thief in the night, but not on the people of God. He's not coming as a thief in the night on the people of God. And he says, but the wise shall understand. Well, because I'm an accountant, let me add a percent. 100% of the people of God will understand. I don't need some YouTube video to tell me what God says. Hello? Unless God's lying here. You understand what you just told Daniel? You don't understand. That's great. Relax. Go wait for the coming of Jesus. You've done what I told you to do. And you're not going to understand your lifetime, Daniel. So when we get into these religious things about, I got to make up what the end times understand, I so am blessed by the honesty. Wow, I guess I can do this. of James Garza. Because he doesn't act like he knows everything.
Praise the Lord, I don't.
Okay, there's other people that are religious leaders and they act like they do.
Yeah. Well, so, yeah, no, I agree. We just had a talk on Sunday evening. This came up. I can't even remember. At Life Group, there was some questions. I can't remember even what the questions were right now. But I did one of my favorite answers. Yeah, I'm not sure. And it's not that I don't have any biblical knowledge, like I have some knowledge and I'll share what I have, but certain questions, at least for me, are beyond my current knowledge. I pray that the Lord will continue to teach me more and all that. But I shared, I can't remember what the question was, but I shared with the group at Life Group. What was it?
It was the dream that I
I think it was your
Oh,
wife that said, she said, why did God do it that way?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Lindsay crushes me every 3 days. She'll ask me a question from the Bible, and if you come ask me, hey, what does the Bible say about? I'm going to have some answers. Well, over here it talks about this, over here it talks about, in the book of James it talks about that. Like, the Lord has blessed me with like memory like that, and great. Lindsay asked me, in such and such passage, why did God blah, blah, blah? How am I supposed to know why God did something? Like, her questions are the absolute hardest questions. Sometimes we're told, by the way, like God did it because of this, But a lot of times we're not. Anyway, she stumps me all the time. But whole different thing. But we were talking about, it was the vision the dream that Pilate's wife had. I can't even remember exactly what the question was. But here's the deal. Here's what I shared with the group. I kind of just told everybody how I personally think we can be actually prideful and arrogant accidentally by being too presumptuous that God thinks like us. Because we may look at certain things that the Bible says and say, well, I just think that, probably this is why God did it. Well, that's fine. That's what you think. But there should be some humility with that where you say, I could totally be wrong. Because literally the Bible tells us we don't think like God thinks. Like there's Bible verses that say, as high as the heavens are above the earth, so are his ways above our ways. We should not walk with the assumption that when we read something, oh yeah, I read it and it probably means this. And we shouldn't be real confident unless don't get me wrong, there's things that are plain in the Word. There's things that are very plain. But that's not most of the things that people have a lot of questions about. And that's kind of what we're talking about right now. These areas where there's a lot of questions and there's a lot of different views, it's usually because it's not super clear. But then you have people, I agree with David, you have people that act like it's super obvious. Well, of course it means this. And I personally, whenever I hear that kind of confidence, I'm already kind of put off by it. Even if I agree with their view. But it's just like, let's be honest at least and say, hey, it's hard to understand some of this stuff and we don't know how it's all going to play out. When it comes to end times events specifically, none of us know exactly how it's going to go down. Nobody. And so I kind of shared this at the end last week. The instruction of the Lord, though, the instruction of Jesus to us concerning end times events, the instructions are, be ready. Be ready. That's what he actually says. So he prophesied all through Matthew chapter 24, and then in that end section where we ended up last week, so be ready. That was basically the summary. So be ready because you don't know when he's going to come. Be ready. I take that very straightforward and say, okay, I look at my life. Am I ready? If he comes right now, am I ready? If he comes, right now in this moment, am I ready? And I just do everything that I can, relying on the Lord's power, obviously, to live a life that looks ready. Now, do we have time for at least one of these parables? Let's go back to Matthew chapter 24 where we're actually supposed to be studying. Sorry that I like jumping in these rabbit holes sometimes. By the way, I know me saying I don't know annoys some people. I know. Sorry. I'm not going to lie to you, though. I'm going to tell you if I don't know. Okay, verse 45. Remember, we've just finished all these prophecies. Verse 44, this is Matthew 24, verse 44 says, "This is why you also must be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not either know or expect." What does y'all's translation say? Mine says expect. Okay. Now, verse 45. Here's where we're going to go. I told you he starts going into parables about this readiness. So let's just, quick pause. He says to be ready. Our question should be, what does it mean to be ready? Right? And so now he starts giving some teachings about that. "Who then is a faithful and sensible slave, whom his master has put in charge of his household to give them food at the proper time? That slave whose master finds him working, when he comes, will be rewarded." Okay? Y'all with me so far? Who's the sensible slave? Well, if the master comes and finds that slave working, okay, they're going to be rewarded. Verse 47, "I assure you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But if that wicked slave says in his heart, 'My master is,'" what? Mine says delayed. What does y'all say? Staying away. What was it? I heard another one. Not coming for a long time. Has it been a while since Jesus said these words? At least in our, maybe not in God's view of time and all, but in our view, yeah, it's been a pretty good while, right? "If that wicked slave says, 'My master is delayed,' and starts to beat his fellow slaves and eats and drinks with drunkards, that slave's master will come on a day he does not expect and at an hour he does not know. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place," right? What does Jesus mean? "In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Everybody here who's been around here for a while probably knows, what is that phrase a symbol for? Hell, eternal judgment, right? In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I've always taken that as a kind of a group together, the whole weeping and gnashing of teeth thing. Because it's just somebody being in extreme anguish. You're crying, that's weeping, and gnashing your teeth is grinding your teeth together in torment, right? Like that's the idea. I heard a pastor, I don't know if this is what Jesus meant by it, I heard a preacher recently kind of separate the two and think about weeping and then like some people are weeping, some people are gnashing their teeth. And I had never thought about it that way. Maybe, who knows? But he pointed out, he said some people are going to be in hell weeping, being sad. "Oh, I should have repented. Why didn't I turn to you sooner? I knew and people warned me and I should have followed you and I should have given my life to Christ. And they're sad. And then he put the people who gnash their teeth in a separate category. They're still angry at God. How dare you judge me and punish me this way? And so he kind of took them separate. Either way, it's very clear it's not a good place to be. For eternity, yeah. Maybe at some point we need to do a Bible study on that. There's in modern times there's kind of some disagreements concerning. I don't know if y'all know this, but hell. Most people think of what's called eternal conscious torment. It's forever. You know where you are, and it's terrible. But there's some people who believe in something called annihilationism, like you're punished by God, but only for a certain time, and then you're just kind of destroyed and you're done. I don't think the Bible teaches that, so maybe at some point we should actually do a study of why. I believe it's eternal and conscious torment forever. I think I'll say this very quickly. I think a lot of people's reasons for not believing that are not actually coming straight from the scriptures. I mean, they'll find some scriptures to kind of make it work, but I don't think it's actually coming from the scriptures. I think it actually comes from our own mentality that it's not right that God would punish us forever. And my whole thing is like, we don't get to decide what's right, But I think that's actually what drives the narrative more than they're actually seeing it in the Bible. They're just thinking, I don't like that. I don't like that God would punish people forever. So it's got to be temporary, And maybe someday we'll come do a little deep dive on that. Okay, but let's appreciate this parable that Jesus has taught. he talks about, so we're talking about what does it mean to be ready? And then he starts teaching these parables. Does everybody see that the overall idea, he uses the illustration of a slave and a master. The good slave, what is the good slave doing when the master shows up? Working. What is the bad slave doing when the master shows up? Slacking off. Now, there were some specifics, but I think the idea is not working. Does everybody agree? The good slave is doing what they're supposed to be doing. The other one, not. And there's a reason given. Did y'all catch the reason why that lazy slave, that the bad slave is not?
Because he doesn't think that master's coming.
The master's delayed. In other words, they think it's been a long time, I still have more. My master's still not coming for a lot longer. That's the idea. I've got time. Does everybody agree this is super relevant? There are so many people walking this earth that have heard the truth of Jesus. They've heard the truth of the gospel. They know they need to repent. They know it's true. They believe it up here on this level, right? Have you ever heard the saying that the distance between heaven and hell is 18 inches? It's the distance between the head and the heart. You know, I think they know up here, right? They know up here, and they know they need to change. They know there's all these things. They know they can't play this whole, well, I know Jesus is real, but I'm going to live however I want. They know it doesn't work, but they think they have time. And Jesus uses this illustration when that slave is not doing what they're supposed to be doing because they think they have time, because they've seen, oh, it's taken a long time, so I probably got more. That whole mentality, it specifically says in verse 48 and then into 49, if that wicked slave says in his heart, my master's delayed it, and goes and does all these things. Then 50, that slave's master will come on a day he does not expect, and in an hour he does not know. In other words, if that's your mentality, I've got time. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I've got time. If that's your mentality, you're not going to have a warning. It's going to be unexpected to you. It's going to seem out of nowhere. How could this be? That might be because Jesus comes again. That might be because your earthly life ends. But either way, all of us are going to be face to face with Jesus and have to face judgment, right? I was just reading in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 the other day where it says, if we're away from the body, we're at home with the Lord, right? But the very next verse says, it says, therefore, whether we're at home or away, we make it our aim to be pleasing to Him. And then the very next verse after that literally says, for we must all appear before, I'm miswording it, but we must all appear before Jesus for judgment. So right now we make it our aim to be pleasing to Him. Y'all might have heard me quote Titus chapter 2. I just want to close with this verse. One of my favorite passages, or my favorite little chunks, I don't know if you'd even consider it a whole passage, but I love in Titus chapter 2, if I can find Titus here. It's short, but here we go. In Titus chapter 2, there's this little chunk, and I kind of see this sandwich. It talks about Jesus coming, and it talks about Him coming again. And it talks about what we're supposed to do in between. And so I think it's this cool, just in a couple verses, this really cool sandwich of what God has already done, what's going to happen, and what we're supposed to be doing right in the middle. Titus chapter 2, verse 11, it says, for the grace of God has appeared with salvation for all people. That's because Jesus came. Does everybody understand? He appeared. The grace of God has appeared with salvation for all people, instructing us to deny godlessness and worldly lusts and to live in a sensible, righteous, and godly way in the present age. Does everybody hear that? That's what we're supposed to be doing right now. Live a sensible, righteous, godly life. Right now. Don't wait for heaven. We're supposed to do it right now. While we wait for the blessed hope and appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ. There's Him coming again, right? He came, He appeared with salvation for all people. This is what we do right now, and he's coming again. I love that little sandwich there. If you want to make that some of your favorite verses too, you're allowed to. It says, he gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness and to cleanse for himself a people for his own possession, eager to do good works. He came to wash us, redeem us, cleanse us so that we could belong to him, right? So that we could be his possession, eager to do good works, it says. So, we're going to close today, and we're going to read more parables with basically a lot of this same lesson over and over again. But the lesson in this parable is while we wait for our master to return, we need to be, well, what does it mean to be ready? We need to be doing the work that we're supposed to be doing. That's the idea. We need to be doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I bet we could go into a lot of details, but one of the things that I've become very confident in is that even when I don't say very many words, the Spirit is personalizing a sermon to each and every one of us. And I bet all of us right now, you've got some things in mind where it's like, yeah, there's certain things I need to be doing. Or you're saying, there's certain things I need to stop doing because I know that's not the good work that I as a servant am supposed to be doing. To be ready at his return, which we don't know when, to be ready at his return is to be doing the work he actually calls us to do. And when he shows up, guess what he finds? He finds us working. That's what it's supposed to be. He finds us doing what we're supposed to be doing. I hope everybody I hope everybody will have the desire to be that good servant. Can we pray? We're going to pray. As you know, we like to pray for needs. Does anybody have any needs?